Ah, it's great. It's great. It's great. Good morning. Morning. It's just a great morning that God has given unto us, and I'm so humbled to be in your midst now. My name is Samuel Riako, community specialist, uh, and a change agent too. This morning, I'm glad that we want to talk about something. We want to talk about, uh, you know, the pandemic. I mean, the situation at hand. Most of people, most of individuals, we do normally fear uh, going for HIV testing. That is why I'm here just to discuss with us, just to help us understand more about HIV testing services and how best it can be conducted, how you can really be convinced about what you're doing. So, the first thing I want us to know much more about HIV testing services. And I hope together we will stay blessed, together we learn, and together we will move forward and have a great insight and now motivated to go to these places and get testing. So when we hear about the term HIV testing and services, what does that I mean HTS, what does that mean to us? What comes into our mind? This is where someone decides by him or herself to go and be tested in relation to HIV because it is real that youths, the elderly, women, men do normally fear, even the married couples fear going for these services. And this is a threat. This is a threat. This is actually a threat to the society. This is a threat to the development of our nation. It is just, yeah. So I want us to start by understanding some of the accepted terms. Now, when carrying out HTS, there are some of the accepted terms that should be used. Yeah, when carrying out HTS, it is not a matter of using any other term, but we need to use some specific terms. Number one, uh, initially we knew that HIV can be transmitted through various ways, and there is a way that we normally one way that everyone knows, even when we wake up a small kid and the kid will tell you it's about is in relation to sexual immorality in sexual intercourse. That is the major cause of HIV transmission. And there is also another way that we can contact it through blood transfusion using sterilized uh, objects like needles, razor blades, yeah, cutting objects such as as many as they you can name them. We can also speak about mother to child, of which this is a term which is not required when carrying out HTS or when studying matter in HTS. We don't encourage mother to child, but we encourage parent to child transmission. Parent to child transmission. I want you to understand that because we don't want one we don't want one party to feel discriminated. Yet this person didn't get this disease on herself by herself. I mean, and so we use parent to child transmission, not mother to child transmission. I hope you understand that. Another thing that you have to understand is that when doing uh, HTS, you have to consider a um, certain context. It must be a client initiated test. A client initiated test. What do you mean by this? This is where you check the consent of the client. Just don't come from nowhere, just harass someone, but this person must consent, must agree that I have come to be tested and it is my choice to be tested, not you telling the person to be tested. So when carrying out HTS, we have to consider some things. Number one thing we have to consider, we have to do what we call counseling. You have to tell the we have to tell the client that okay, uh we're going to do a test, and during the test you have to be ready with the two results. Number one, it is either positive or negative, and despite of the results, you have to take any, and you have to understand that even though it is positive, that is not the end of everything. You have to stay strong. You have to stay uh, strong, and you have to remain strong so that you can continue with life. So that is number thing. And one thing you have to consider, you have to do counseling to the person. You have to ask the person, okay, when were you tested last? Why would you want to be tested again? And if the result is like this, what is your take? So you have to take the consent of the client. Another thing is that confidentiality. The person conducting HTS must promise confidentiality of the result. It is not a matter of spreading it to everyone, it's not a matter of saying it to everyone, but you have to remain confidential. You have to remain confidential. The result should only be known by you and the client, not by any other person. Another thing you have to consider is the consent. I said earlier that you just not hope from anywhere and just start doing the testing, but you have to consent. You have to seek for the consent of the client to test is something based on the agreement between you and the client. Um, Another term that we normally we normally encourage people to use is like okay, another term which is preferred to be used is HIV test. You need to call it HIV test, not AIDS test. AIDS is a virus. AIDS is the you cannot test AIDS, but you can test the virus itself. The virus is the HIV, immune human immune virus. That is what you're testing. Um, in cases where you deal with clients which have already contracted the disease, you should refer to them as person on care, not AIDS patient. That is discriminative. I hope you understand that. That is very discriminative. You have to use person on care, not AIDS patient. I hope you get that. When conducting HTS, we have three parts or three categories of conducting HTS. Number one, we have pre-test. Let me just list them is when we start this, then we discuss them one by one. So number one, we have pre-test, testing itself, and then post-test. So when we speak about pre-test, what do we mean here? This is where the counselor or the person conducting HTS seeks or creates a rapport by the or with the client. They create rapport where when you do that, you ensure that you assure the client confidentiality of the result which will come out. You ensure that there is a conducive environment where a client will feel relaxed and comfortable to discuss issues surrounding HIV. So you have to create this rapport. When you've created it, this person will be very free to discuss with you what the person thinks about HIV, the causes, how can we not contract it, what are some of the things that we don't need to do in order not to contract the disease, and also in during the session you identify the risk the client has come across and provide the counselor with time to explain the process of conducting the HIV test and possible results. So during this time pre-test, that is where you ask the client why you come why do you want to be tested, what are some of the things that makes you feel that you need to be tested, why and when last were you tested, And this is when the client also, I mean, the counselor explains now, the client is capable of explaining what the process is all about and the possible results which will come out. And during this time, the the client and the counselor becomes friends, and they are able to advise one another. They are able to talk much more matters related to HIV, some of the things. And then the second process is where now we do the testing itself. Now we do the testing itself. This one is a very short process because it only entails the collection of a blood sample through a finger prick. We take it from a fingerprint and to run an HIV rapid test using serial and parallel algorithms. This is a very short thing. This is a very short thing. This a needle. Then you take blood sample from the the fingerprint, and then the test is run through using a serial or and a serial and a parallel algorithms. This is something which can not only take roughly 2 minutes, and the results are out. After the results are out, we conduct what we called post testing. This is now in relation to the result which has been received. Do the client accept the results? Do the client accept the results obtained? Um, and then after that, you start by disclosing what is all what has come out. And if I'm at all this is where you find that if at all the the person has tested positive, you seek for referrals. And then here you have to be very careful when, if at all the result obtained is a positive result, you have to be very careful on how you want to handle this. You have to be very careful on how you'll go about this. So during this period, you have to be very keen. So after that, after disclosing the results, when the result is negative, you'll advise the client accordingly. You'll tell the client that yes, the results are negative, but that does not mean that you're not free to just continue maybe continue maybe handling yourself careless. But this is the time that now you need to take much of precautions. If at all you have to be part of sexual activity, you have to use protective protection, and such as condoms. You have to explain to the client the available protective um, things that can be used to prevent further contraction. And if at all the results are positive, you need to advise the client accordingly. You need to refer to the nearby hospital. You need to ensure that the client is enrolled to ART treatment, and that is um, all about that. So, HTS, there's a note here that I want us to understand is that HTS is the gateway to HIV related services. It is very pivotal for individuals to know their status for a positive lifestyle. How will you know if you've not been told? And how will you be told if you've not been tested? And how will you be tested if you've not gone for testing itself? So kindly go for testing, know your status, live a positive life, irrespective of the result received. Stay positive, take precautions if the results are negative. Also, take precautions when the results are positive, and do as advised by the counselor. Uh, Thank you for that. And the last thing I want us to talk about is couple HIV testing and HIV couple HIV counseling and testing CHCT. This is also an important thing to the married families, to the married couples. It is very important. It is very important to be tested. It is very important to know your results as an individual. It is very encouraging that we live a positive life because we know our results. We live a healthy life because we know our results. Yeah, so a couple HIV counseling and testing refers or is the situation where two married people, a wife and a husband, take their time, come for services, come for HTS services together. They are cancelled and receive their HIV test results together. This is my result. Oh, Annie, pick it. It is very nice. We're all positive, you're all negative. We have to live like this. We have to do this in order to maybe to avoid some things in life. So it is very encouraging. It is very healthy. And when you do this, it is just of great help to all of you. Thank you so much for um, watching that. And it is very important. Bye. See you.